Morning. We'll call today's Board of Commissioners meeting to order. I'll ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the audience, there's a copy of the Open Meetings Law located on the north wall of the legislative chambers as anybody needs it. Also, for health reasons, if for some reason there needs to be an automatic defibrillator use, it's there in the back of the chambers. Also, if you have a cell phone, I advise you to turn it off or to silence it at this time. There's a lot of requests from people to be first by the judge. The agenda, we should be pretty rapid, so I hear your concerns and just follow me. Hopefully we'll get there. With that, please call to order the Board of Equalization meeting.
Commissioner Borgeson? Here. Commissioner Boyle? Here. Commissioner Kavanaugh? Here. Commissioner Duda? Here. Commissioner Kraft? Here. Commissioner Morgan? Here. Mr. Chair.
Here. Item A is the approval of the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, April 16th, 2019. Item B is called for a meeting and set Tuesday, May 7th, 2019 as a date for a hearing on certified assessment corrections. What's the will of the board?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Boyle, second by Commissioner Morgan. Please vote.
Commissioner Boyle's vote will not appear, but he does vote yes, as do the rest of the commissioners. Motion passes.
Under resolutions, there's resolutions D, E, F, G, and H. What's the will of the board? And adjourn?
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Boyle to approve items D, E, F, G, and E and adjourn. Second by Commissioner Morgan. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
We'll now call to order the Board of Commissioners meeting. Roll call.
Commissioner Borgeson? Here. Commissioner Boyle? Here. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Here.
Commissioner Duda? Here. Commissioner Kraft? Here. Commissioner Morgan? Here. Mr. Chair.
Here, we'll adjust the schedule and go down to item 6, which is the public hearing. Item A is a special use permit application submitted by G&G Manufacturing Company for a temporary asphalt batch plant on a 565 north to south by 966 east to west parcel and northwest corner of the western half and northwest 1/4 in section 32- Township 15 North Range, 10 east of 6th p.m. The address, yes, the address 26245 West Center Road. With that, we will open the public hearing on this matter, and Doug, you want to go?
Good morning, Commissioners. Doug Cook, your Douglas County Planner, and I'm here from our beautiful new office at the former Fitzgerald Veterans Home. The Planning Commission met on April 10th regarding a special use permit for a temporary asphalt batch plant, as the Chairman mentioned, 26245 West Center. That is generally located at the southeast quadrant of the intersection of West Center and 264th. An asphalt batch plant is equipment that produces asphalt laid on roads and parking lots. At the hearing, one neighbor spoke in opposition, citing more truck traffic. The operation could operate up to 12 hours a day, and the odor of the asphalt. I would note, however, that the zoning regulations state hours of operation can go to 12 hours per day. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this special use with 8 in favor and 1 abstention with 6 conditions, and I'll run you through this here real quick. So again, we are in the southeast quadrant of 264th and Center. That's the comp plan. That property is designated as agricultural and resource extraction. On this same parcel, there is a mining operation. So a couple of pictures here. On 264th, looking kind of toward the northeast. The operation would be just to the left. You can see our posted rezone sign there. Here again, the grassy field is where the operation would be. As I mentioned, the Planning Commission approved this with 6 conditions. If the applicants propose a new driveway onto 264th, it must be approved by the engineer's office. They're proposing portable toilets. They'll follow any health requirements. Again, maximum of 12 hours per day. The routes that the trucks take to the job sites has to be approved by the county engineer. If they do have lighting, they shall direct that lighting onto the property, and there shall be no access onto West Center Road. The Plan Commission asks that you concur with their recommendation to approve with those 6 conditions.
This is a public hearing. Before we hear from the board, is there anybody from the public that wants to comment on this item at this time? Is there anyone from the public? With that, Commissioner Kraft, then Boyle.
Yes. When you say temporary, is there a definition of temporary?
6 months.
6 months, okay. And that's in the law,
It's in the zoning regulations, yes,
in the
sir.
zoning? Very fine, thank you.
Commissioner Boyle.
Yes, I want to ask, the neighbors were notified, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And they, and only one objected is,
There were 2 there and 1 spoke.
okay, and what were the objections? The odor and closeness or something, or traffic and,
Even more trucks on 264th. The fact that it could operate 12 hours per day, and the smell.
is the home pretty close to, the residence pretty close to the operation?
Oh, it's within a few hundred feet, yes.
Do you think there's anything that can be done to help abate the problems, or is it just, that's too bad?
That's unfortunate, yes. In that area, Commissioner, we've got a landscaping business, we've got the Two Rivers RV storage, we've got Travis Harlow's convenience store and Subway. Across the street from the neighbors, there's the existing quarry. So this proposal is not out of character with all the other activity out
Okay.
there.
And you mentioned lighting, why would they be using lighting, working at night?
Yes, if they do 12 hours a day, they might need lighting.
Okay, so 12 hours is what, 6 a.m. till, or 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., something like that? Okay. All right, well, that's what I wanted to know, if the neighbors are, I mean, they're in an area that sounds pretty industrial or whatever, so, but, and there's only 2, is that correct, or
There were,
2 who showed up?
yes, sir,
Okay. All right, and the length of this is 6 months?
6 months.
And do they have, can they extend it if it,
Yes, they can.
okay. Well, keep us informed of it, okay? If you hear any complaints or anything, let us know.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kraft.
Yes, if they extend it, do they have to come back to us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Again, this is the public comment period. Anybody want to pro or con, public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. What's the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Boyle, second by Commissioner Borgeson. Beat you to it. Please vote.
Yeah, sure. Just to go back to an earlier point, Commissioner Boyle is voting, but just doesn't appear on the screen, so we're having some technical difficulties, but he does vote yes, as do the rest of the commissioners. Motion passes.
Okay, with that, we'll go to item
Thank
3 on the Board of Commissioners agenda. We're going to begin with item C and then just knock the rest of those out. So with that, we'll begin with item C, and a resolution recognizing the life-saving actions of correctional officers. Director Mike Myers.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Myers, Director of Corrections. The work of our correctional officers often goes unnoticed by the community. When they do a fantastic job, very few people know about it. We know about it, and these 2 gentlemen beside me, Officer Wagner, Officer Gillespie, engaged in conduct about 6 weeks ago that was striking in its poise and heroism. There was an inmate who was within moments of likely dying, were it not for the quick thinking and actions of these 2 gentlemen. So with that, I would like to read a resolution that we submitted to recognize them. Whereas Douglas County recognizes the exceptional challenges all correctional officers face while conducting their duties on a daily basis, and whereas Douglas County correctional officers Stephen Wagner, Adam Gillespie, under the supervision of Sergeant Trung Tak, reacted with poise and courage to save an inmate's life under extreme circumstances, and whereas Douglas County wishes to recognize and thank Officer Wagner, Officer Gillespie, and Sergeant Tock for their quick thinking and heroic action. And whereas Douglas County is grateful that our correctional officers willingly risk their own safety in order to protect the safety of others. Now, therefore, be it resolved by this Board of Commissioners, this public recognition and appreciation of the professionalism and heroism of all Douglas County correctional officers, especially Stephen Wagner, Adam Gillespie, and Trung Tak.
There's a motion by Commissioner Borges and seconded by Commissioner Duda. We've got some comments, and we'll just give it back to Commissioner Boyle.
I'll try to be brief. When I heard about what happened, we get phone calls from corrections when there are incidents, regardless of the time of day or night, and received the phone call about what you had done. And I mean, my impulse was to drive right over and tell you thank you, but that just would add to the, I guess, the confusion of what was taking place and the heroism that you demonstrated. I was really moved by it, and I still am. I admire first responders, which is what you are, first responders who run to the scene, not away from it. And if you had run away from it, we would have a terrible result. But you stepped in, you used your instincts, your courage to do the right thing, and with wonderful results. And I am incredibly proud of the Corrections Department and of you individually who represent them. You're really just a fine gentleman with a wonderful sense of values, and you represent the finest of your department. And I'm really pleased that you're here today. And I want to congratulate you for what you've done. It's really one of the highest callings that a human being can have, to save another person's life. Thank you.
Commissioner Kavanaugh.
You guys are real heroes, and this is a well-deserved recognition for folks who don't get a lot of recognition doing the important public safety jobs that you do for all of us to keep our community safe and well. And, you know, the intervention that you did, the life-saving intervention that you did is really a stellar example of corrections work done at its best. So congratulations and thank you from all of us for everything you do. Thank you.
Commissioner Borges.
I just want to echo what's been said, but also lend a thank you to what you've done and the professionalism in which you show in working at our correctional facility. The Douglas County residents should be proud, and we thank you for what you do and what you did.
No, we got one. But this is why I want to, again, all's been said, I want to thank you all for your efforts. We're going to approve the motion, but I want you all to wait because I'd like you all to come around, shake your hands. I want to let your colleagues make their announcement after we vote, and then we'll go from there. So with that, there's a motion and second. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
So if you all wait a minute, somebody has an announcement that they want to.
Commissioners, our honor guard, or a couple members of our honor guard, Sergeant Sandusky and Officer Bennis are here to extend invitations to you for our activities next week for Correctional Officer Appreciation Week.
If you all want to come around with them, appreciate it. Yes. Thank you. Mike, you gonna come back one more time and give detail about what they did? Somebody just, Marianne, I'm gonna go to you next. Just knock this section out. I'm gonna go to your.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit vague, Commissioners, in describing the event because actually this inmate is still, after his hospital stay, is in our custody. And I'm not sure what the media may be reporting on this today, so I want to protect his privacy from any, not give too many details that may be identifiable. But Officers Gillespie and Wagner were on duty in one of our more high-risk housing units, and basically they thwarted a suicide attempt that was so severe that this inmate was probably within moments of passing away before they intervened. And of note, just the ongoing extraordinary efforts that we undertake in cases like this. We have, since when this individual returned to our custody, we have had him under a constant 24-hour one-on-one watch to assure so that for as long as he is in our custody, we are doing everything we absolutely can to keep this individual safe. So I wish I could be a little more explicit in my explanation. I just want to protect the inmate's privacy at this point.
Thank you. All right, just for the record, so people out in the audience can get ready, we're gonna just knock this section out. I'm gonna go to Commissioner Borgeson to do item A, I'll do item B. We'll go back to the top of the agenda and work our way back from consent agenda. But then when we get to presentations, I'm gonna begin with item C to give the CBB director time for his presentation and the ability to get back for pre-council. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Borgeson for our item A, resolution recognizing the week of April 14th through April 20th as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Commissioner Borgeson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And as I said, this is kind of a retro resolution, but felt it was very important for us to pass this resolution to let our 911 employees know that the work that they do is recognized by this board. So whereas the week of April 14th through April 20th has been declared as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week with the intent to promote 911 awareness and to recognize the invaluable role that 911 operators and dispatchers have in the safety of our communities. And whereas emergencies can occur at any time of day or night that may require police, fire, or emergency medical services. And whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our first responders is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Douglas County 911 Emergency Communications Department. And whereas the individuals staffing our 911 center are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas the Douglas County 911 Emergency Communications Department dispatches for 15 regional agencies and receives over 500,000 calls each year, 24 hours per day, 365 days per year. And whereas our dispatchers and operators have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients while continuing to exhibit compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their jobs. Now therefore be it resolved by this Board of County Commissioners, Douglas County, Nebraska, that this board hereby declares the week of April 14th through the 20th as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our community safe, dated this day of 30th day of April 2019. And I also just want to mention that during that week, there were activities that occurred that we also think are pretty cool and deserve recognition. On April 9th, the Douglas County Fire Association provided a day-long cookout for the telecommunicators of all staff, on all the shifts. So that was they donated or furnished all the food items of hamburgers, hot dogs, and treats. and the association members personally cooked those foods for the 911 staff. On April 16th, the 911 management presented each telecommunicator with personalized non-spilled beverage cups for use in the new 911 center. And on April 18th, the 911 center director and deputy director will be provided the shifts of the 911 center with a picnic meal, pulled pork sandwiches, homemade baked beans, snacks, and drinks. So they were very well recognized that week, but again, I wanted to make sure that we had a resolution that David could take back to the staff today to let them know how much we appreciate them as well. So with that, I would ask motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Boyle, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. Please vote.
I think they should invite us.
Motion passes 7-0.
If I could ask him to come down and grab the resolution. Thank you. Be sure to tell him how much we appreciate it.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you. With that, we'll go to item B, and it's the recognition of the following Douglas County employees who are retiring. Ms. Lori Anderson, who's retiring from the Douglas County Communications Department after 24 years of service. We want to thank her for her service and wish her well in her retirement. With that, is there a motion and a second to approve item B? Motion by Commissioner Boyle, seconded by Commissioner Duda. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
We'll go back up to the top of the Board of Commissioners agenda item. Item 1 is the minutes and claims. Letter A is approval of the minutes of the Douglas County Justice Center Forum held Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019, and the Board of Directors meeting held Tuesday, April 16th, 2019. Item B is approval of the claims submitted for payment process through Tuesday, April 30th, 2019. Is there a motion? Motion by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Boyle. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item 2 is the consent agenda. There's 10 items on the consent agenda. What's the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Duda, seconded by Commissioner Kraft. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item 4, citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment on Board of Commissioners related items not listed on the agenda. Are there any citizens' comments? Seeing none, we'll move to item 5, which is presentations. We'll begin with item C, Visit Omaha / the Omaha Convention and Visitors Bureau update by Mr. Keith Baxter. Keith.
Good morning, everyone. Give me just a moment here to get this, if I remember exactly how to do everything. You know, I've had an issue with my computer the last few days. I've threatened to have mine thrown out the window a couple times. There we are. I don't think that's ours. Yeah, it is. That's the youth center, so let's see, where are we at right here? You get separated with the drag pole one down. Do that. There we go. Patience sometimes helps, but let's see here, get this rolling. All right. Good morning, Chairman Rogers and Commissioners. Thank you very much for the opportunity to make the presentation this morning. Visit Omaha team has prepared a presentation for you that highlights some of our key accomplishments in 2018 and our business plan for 2019. In front of you is copies of both. So this is our annual report. In here is, we measure everything we do by different KPIs, so measurement instruments. So you'll see in great detail, if you would like, what our accomplishments were in 18. And then 2019, that's our business plan. So this sets our goals and what are we doing in 2019 to accomplish everything that we've established out there. So I know as you all are aware, the Omaha Convention Visitors Bureau, known out in the community as Visit Omaha, is a department within the city, and a large portion of our funding comes through, thanks to Douglas County and through the lodging tax that is collected, and the other part comes from city occupation tax. Both of these are funds that are collected based on overnight visitors in our community. So we have a lot of great things to celebrate this morning, but I'm going to keep this to some very quick highlights. Otherwise, I know you have a busy day ahead of you. I could talk for hours. So we'll keep this very short. And then at the end, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. So we'll get started. Our mission is very simple. It's to promote and to develop the Omaha metropolitan area as a dynamic tourism destination in order to stimulate economic growth. In 2018, our meeting sales team, so that is part of our team that's actually out there trying to fill that convention center and all of our area hotels for meetings, sporting events, and other miscellaneous events throughout the year. They had a great 2018. We booked 140 different pieces of business, and those meetings, some of them happened in 18. We had others that went out to 2023, and a lot of our lead opportunities take us out to 2024 and 25. So we're always looking long-term and out many years from now. Those 140 groups, if they did book, once they arrive here, they'll generate about $268 million in economic impact for our community. Moving on to our marketing team, they focus on our leisure market. So you've got the sales team that's going after that group business that can come to this community. We have the whole other side of it, which is those visitors that can choose to go anywhere. They might be a couple in Kansas City that's looking at having a weekend outing somewhere. Where should they go? So we have a whole program in marketing to that leisure campaign. And in 2018, we targeted 7 key marketplaces, put a lot of emphasis in our marketing, and we saw about 13% increase in visitation to the community from those marketplaces. So very happy about that. Once we get them to come here, then it gets down to what do they do when they're here. And some of the discussion a few years ago was, are visitor centers dying? No one's, because we all now have a smartphone, or we're going to do all of our research, we're not going to go and talk to somebody. Lord forbid we're going to do that. And what we've actually have found is that, yes, they do their research online, they do use their smartphone, but they also still come and want to talk to a local. They've done their research, they know that maybe the key highlight they want to go to the zoo, but gosh, where should I take the family tonight for great pizza? Or where should we go as a couple? What's your favorite beer? So we find that is the case. We have 3 visitor centers. Our primary one is down on the corner of 10th and Farnham. The other 2 are out at the airport, and last year we had over 42,588 visitors come through those doors asking those specific questions. And we do most of that with 72 non-paid volunteers who dedicate their time and service to us, so we certainly appreciate that. In 2019, looking ahead, on our meeting sales side, we continue with our initiatives to drive overnight visitation and convention business. An area that we're going to enhance our efforts is in the Chicago marketplace. A few years ago, I talked to you about what we were doing in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. has the largest concentration of associations, and that's who our meetings team is targeting. Well, the second largest association grouping is in the Chicago marketplace. So we're duplicating what we did in Washington, D.C. by having a dedicated person that lives here but travels up to Chicago on a monthly basis to engage with the business community up there. In another area we have is the sporting events. Sporting events continue to grow in our marketplace. We are a great sports hub. We have a wonderful collaboration with the Omaha Sports Commission. Josh Todd is their executive director. He's been a great addition to the community here. My director of sales and him are working very closely on how can we drive new sporting events to Omaha. Facilities like the new Union Bank and Trust facility is a great addition, allowing us to go after more basketball and more volleyball groups in the future. On our marketing side, one last thing to highlight on our meeting sales team is we call it our coup that we won, which was the American Bus Association is a convention that's coming in 2020. And this group is, one, it's a piece of business that meets in January, and not always easy to find a group that will meet here in the Midwest in January. On top of that, there are 3,400 people that are attending. It's going to be one of our largest conventions outside of our sporting events in Berkshire Hathaway that comes here. And so that's a huge opportunity. These folks are tour operators, transportation companies, hoteliers, attractions, other organizations like us, all here to talk to these motor coach operators. These motor coach operators book tours across the country. So it's a great opportunity for us to showcase Omaha, showcase Nebraska to those tour operators. It generates $6.8 million in economic impact. So again, in January will be a very nice boost for us. But the long-term effect is these meeting planners, these group tour operators, they book tours all over the country. And so we're looking at what happens after 2020. How do we grow in the group tour market in 21, 22, 23, and 24? So it's a great opportunity for us. On the leisure side, our new initiatives, and I will show you a couple of our videos. We don't really advertise here in Omaha. Our job is to advertise outside of this marketplace and try to bring those visitors in. So I'll show you a couple of those, but we're launching 15 new videos this next year, focusing on our key cities, Kansas City and Minneapolis, Des Moines, Sioux Falls. That 6-hour radius, that's what we're really targeting in there. Another area, you've heard me talk for years about our group business, also our leisure side. We haven't talked a lot about that business traveler. And we're seeing trends in the business travel that are changing. Business traveler are those that they come for a specific purpose. They're here to call on their clients in town. They're here to maybe go to training for their company at their company headquarters that's based here. So they have an intent purpose to come. However, we're seeing that demographic change. We're seeing more millennials. Millennial tends to like to maybe blend their business trip with their leisure, hence bleisure is how we're calling it in the industry. So we're looking at how can we entice those business travelers to either bring somebody with them, because that's the other trend we're finding, is a lot of times they will either bring a significant other or they'll meet their friends in a destination that they know throughout their network and say, let's meet here since I'm going to be in town. So how can we get them to first do that, but then also extend their stay? So we're working on the bleisure market. Part of our mission is to do product development, and so I'm just going to tease you that maybe somebody might emerge later this year that might live underneath a bridge and help us draw future attendees and especially kids to our community. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Might see a little blue guy in the corner. To give you a sample of what we do with our commercials, and what we do is we break them up into two segments. So they're a full 30 seconds, but we do two 15-seconders. One is a call to action, so asking them to come to visit. The other part of it is what they could do while they're here. And we've got these set up so that we can use them both in traditional media, when we're buying placements on TVs down in Kansas City, but also what we can do on our social media and on our website. So I'm going to show you two different types of ones that we do here. The first is obviously attracting the family. Again, it's a call to action.
52 weekends every year. They're not just days on a calendar. They're an anthem to life. They're road trips that turn into stories that get better with time. 52 weekends waiting for you. Plan yours at visitomaha.com.
And then to pair that, what do you do while you're here? We've gone with the zoo.
Find your Wild Kingdom adventure in Zoo City, USA. Plan your Omaha weekend at visitomaha.com.
Now, we also go after the couples, obviously. And in this case, we talk about how much time people leave on their calendar every year that they don't take their vacation time. So here is, again, a call to action.
52 weekends every year. Make the most out of each one. 52 chances to indulge your curiosity, binge on originality, get a taste for the authentic. 52 weekends waiting for you. Plan yours at visitomaha.com.
And then, obviously, got to have what are they going to do while they're here? We have a great craft brew scene, and so we have this commercial. And again, I've been off the market for about 33 years, so I didn't quite get this at first, so we'll see if you guys do. But
Omaha. It's like Tinder for craft beer lovers. Plan your Omaha weekend at visitomaha.com.
so they had explained to me that whole part of that social media and how you're dating scene. So that's a little bit there on Tinder for beer. In addition, in 2019, we're continuing our emphasis on Minneapolis. We've had great results. We saw in 2018, we actually, for the first time, we wrapped a train in downtown Minneapolis, and that ran from January till April. It happened to be during Super Bowl, so we had our 52 weekend program going, and Deb's brainchild was, well, 52 weekends, 52nd Super Bowl. Really, the full story is we didn't realize that till afterwards, but it was it was very successful for us. And so in 2019, they asked us if we'd be interested in doing it again, and we said absolutely. They said, we'll give you 2 trains. So we had 2 trains, and our added bonus was, this picture over here is we actually were able to brand the inside of the train also. So about 8.6 million people, impressions, see this train as it goes from the Mall of America all the way through downtown over to, what's their arena? U.S. Bank Arena. And in 19 was NCAA Final Four. So we partnered again, doing it during the January to April timeframe so they could see that. Since we were allowed to do the theme on the inside of the train, we also really promoted NCAA College World Series. So we'll continue to see how our traction goes in the Minneapolis marketplace. Also in 2019, and again, thank you to the Douglas County grant, so through the Visitor Improvement Fund, we were able to reskin our 2 airport visitor centers. Partnering also with Sarpy County and with Pottawatomie County. In our discussions with the airport, they talked about how they're a regional airport. We've got people coming in and flying out from all over the area, and could we not do more to help promote the whole area? So thank you to the grant. Through Douglas County, we were able to reskin these, and it's now the Omaha Metro Area Visitor Information Booth. And we've had really great success. It's also something fresh and bright. We'll see when the airport does their next phase what we will do from there, but right now we see a number of folks at that area each year. And lastly, just as a reminder that from Douglas County perspective, and for all of you to get a sense of exactly how does tourism impact your own districts, we have through our website, so you have your own individual sites within our page, in our website, you can go to your page and you can see everything in your district that is impacted by tourism, meaning what are the restaurants that we promote, what are the attractions that are there. But the challenge is we kind of know your district. We think we know it pretty well, but you know it better than we do. So I challenge you to take a look in your district website and site and see, are we missing anything? It's also a great opportunity when you're out with new businesses out there and they're wondering how they can do more in the community, that you encourage them to come talk to us, because we can help when it comes to helping drive new folks into their businesses throughout the year. And then periodically you get a note from me that we have a lot of ways that we are getting Omaha's word out, and we want to make sure you as our commissioners know what the good things are being said about us, or being said specific, when I say us, meaning Omaha, and what is being said about maybe a business within your district. So periodically you get that little note from me. Lastly, Commissioner Borgeson, thank you for helping us bring a conference in this year. So as you are soon to be the president, right, the chair of the National Association of Counties, you're helping bring a conference in later this year that we're very excited about. But it's, again, that bring home the business. A lot of time it's that connections that we have of locals that can help us say, you know, I go to this conference every year, and why am I always going to Orlando or to Dallas? Can it come to Omaha? So it's opportunities like that, and Commissioner was very helpful in helping us secure that. And what we hope is it's a small taste of what we could do with the National Association of Counties, and can we get something bigger down the road? One last plug, because I won't be here next week, Tracy will be here, but it's National Tourism Week next week. Also, we are hosting the OMAs, the Omaha Tourism Awards, and Commissioner Rogers, you're one of our presenters, so that's a confirmation again of next Wednesday. We'll speak about that. But again, that will be happening next week. That is when we recognize frontline employees across the county, across the 3 counties. And it's a great opportunity to hear some incredible stories from people that touch our visitors every day and help make Omaha a great place to come and visit. I couldn't do what I do without an amazing team, and I have some of them here this morning. But there's 24 dedicated staff members on our team, along with 72 volunteers that every day are promoting our destination, talking about it to visitors, helping us create new ways to draw that visitor in, whether it's creativity through our website, and I couldn't do it without that team, so thank you very much. And I couldn't do what I do without the support of you guys, so I appreciate it. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
You got 3, and yeah, I do have that down, but a week seems like an eternity right now.
It does.
Commissioner Kraft.
Yes. I read a lot of business magazines. And yesterday, I was reading, I think it was Fast Company, it could have been one of the other ones, that they had an advertising come to our city for your convention or your meetings, and it really stood out. And I meant to cut it out and give it to you, but I think I just gave it to the youth center, because I send a lot of business magazines there. But do we do anything in print, in magazines like Fast Company? Boy, I'm drawing blanks on all the names right now.
We do most of ours in industry related, so a lot of the association magazines is where we will do most of our promoting. We looked at how we partner more with the Chamber of Commerce. Our marketing teams are talking together about how we can collaborate and make sure that we're carrying that joint message. You know, they're looking at how do we bring a business to the community. We're looking at can we help them entice that first-time visitor who might say, hey, I want to work here in the future, or I want to live here. So we're seeing how we can jointly do that. But most of our advertising, we do quite a bit in print, along with our digital, but it's in specific market segments that we know will return business to us. So it's like those meeting planners. PCMA, which is the Professional Conference Management Association, does a monthly magazine. So does ASAE, American Society of Association Execs. And so we'll tailor it there, just because our marketing dollar is fairly limited, so we have to look at where we can get the biggest bang for our buck.
Well, you know, sometimes doing the Wall Street Journal, for example, you post an article that says, Warren Buffett holds his corporate meetings in Omaha, why don't you? You might just
I've got some people
consider that.
listening there. We'll look
Okay.
at that, absolutely.
Because, you know, I think something like that could really perk some interest, because many of these people have come to Omaha for their Berkshire meeting, but they don't think about bringing their company here.
Right,
And that's pretty much all I have.
okay.
Oh,
Good
one
point.
more. On the bus convention, when you were wooing them, I went to that wooing event. And after they come here, are you going to do a follow-up letter to each of the members who come?
Yes, we have a whole plan. We actually have, and the American Bus Association itself has been a great partner, not only about us bringing that convention, but how can they help engage in our state? So they've been coming out and helping talk with local communities, because this is really a regional initiative. Omaha is the host, but obviously these group tours have other things that they can do. So we're doing pre and post FAM trips for some of the tour operators, and then we have a whole campaign of how we're going to continue to stay in front of those tour operators afterwards to try to get that business to the state.
Thank you, that's all.
Commissioner Morgan.
I think Commissioner Kraft's idea on why don't you on the Berkshire thing is a great one, and of course, the Berkshire starts this week. I want to thank you and your team for the good work you do for Visit Omaha, and all of us that live here certainly appreciate it. And I want to also thank Commissioner Borgeson. I'm not sure the dates of that event that you're having, but you'll let us know in advance. It's July 18th, I think, she becomes the chairman, president of NACO, which is a great honor and certainly deserved by Commissioner Borgeson. The other thing is I kind of like food. Commissioner Boyle and I get together for that, and sometime you might let me know where that Reuben is. It's on page 11. Looks pretty good, Mike, if you don't look at it.
I think that's the crescent moon. Yes, it is.
Okay. It looks
Yep.
excellent. We'll try that the next time we go.
Good. Well, and every Friday, we actually do a segment on the noontime KETV where we actually do feature a different restaurant. It's something new we were able to do in our partnership with them this last year. And so every
Great.
Friday at noon, you'll see another restaurant in the community that you can go check out.
All right. Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Boyle.
I'm really, probably one of the oldest commissioners, not the oldest here, but I'm interested in what, what you're using in social media to contact people. I live in a condo in the old market, and there are 20 units in the building, and I'm the only person who takes the newspaper. And it's a real signal. I was out of town in Long Beach a year ago or so, and I was looking for a newspaper, could not find a newspaper, and the same thing happened in Santa Barbara. I found an old Wall Street Journal in a Starbucks. It was just amazing to me. So it says to me that I don't know what I'm doing, and I need to change my focus. The point is, I wonder whether, there's some really hidden gems, I guess they're hidden, in Omaha that would appeal to the millennials particularly, and I'm not trying to foster drinking or anything, but there are some really terrific spots on 13th Street that are just developing, really great coffee shops and so forth, and there's a great art gallery at 1516 that every Sunday has music and, and art and so forth, and it's actually free, donations, 1516 Leavenworth. And then the Capital District and the Benson and South Omaha. I took some county commissioners through from rural Nebraska, took some county commissioners to South Omaha, and they were just enthralled by the music, by the food. When you drive, I drive down 24th because it's slow moving, and the music is terrific from the cars that pass. And sometimes when you stop, there's a car opposite you, and I turn and look, and the driver turns and looks, and I always speak to them, and sometimes they speak back in Spanish. It's really cool. But anyway, it's a great experience that I don't know how you get that so fast in some of these commercials, but there's so many things that I think can apply, really draw millennials, and that's all we seem to hear about, and I agree with it totally, that, right now there's a big push for cybersecurity and so forth, and we have Flywheel here, which is a really terrific, growing organization. I took my granddaughter, one of my 13 granddaughters, over to Mastercraft to show her what was going on over there, and she's pretty interested in those things. So I guess what I'm saying is that things like that would really attract and interest the millennials, like Flywheel and those opportunities, and we have so many things going on for us here. You've done a terrific job. It's a different approach. Finally, I'll say that two other thoughts. I had family in St. Joe that has moved back to Omaha, but when I was there, whenever I met any of their friends, and I said I was from Omaha, without exception, this is amazing to me, without exception, they said, "Oh, we love Omaha, we love it," And I don't know how much advertising you do in places like St. Joe and Platte Center and Savannah and those towns down there, it's pretty amazing. So keep up the good work. It's a wonderful thing you're doing, and you're really helping us here too. So good luck and keep it up.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And yes, follow the social media side. We have a person that's her full job is to,
Good.
through Instagram, Twitter, is following what's happening in the different areas.
Great. Well, I guess maybe I need to tune into those, which I don't.
Well, I'm like you. I still read my newspaper every morning.
Well,
It's
I
something I
tune-
like to hold on to
Yeah.
and skim through.
I tune into My Face. No, wait, they're not My Face. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Commissioner Borgeson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for what you do. One of the ideas that, as I'm sitting here listening to all of this, and some of us not knowing everything there is to know about the tourism market in the entire Douglas County area, would be nice to maybe do a tour bus for elected officials to go around in each one of the districts and point out, here's what this is, or here's what that is, and we could have a pub night, or a distillery night, or restaurant night, or whatever. So anyway, it's something to think about, for that we would know. Huh? Free sample, yeah. Just for us to know as elected officials, and then we could
Absolutely.
talk more on it.
Well, I hope you get a sense of what we do. 'cause
Yeah,
that's- When we bring a meeting planner in or a media person, that's what we're doing for 3 days, is carting them around, showcasing whether it's that best Reuben in town or the great meeting rooms or where the music is. Happy to do so.
Okay. Keith, that's it. Appreciate it. Thank all you all for your good work and the continued progress.
Thank you very much.
All righty.
We'll do
With
so.
that, we'll go back up to the beginning of the presentations and start at letter A, which is project presentation by Andrew Gorman, who's the president of the Douglas County Health Center Foundation. Claire, do you want to introduce?
Yeah, while we're changing speakers up here, I would like to just briefly, first off, introduce our new president, Andrew, or Andy Gorman. This is his first year as president of the foundation board. We are thrilled to have him on board, but I would like to introduce him to this board. After he got his MBA in healthcare administration, Andrew managed medical practices for CHI Health for 9 years. I think Commissioner Borgeson crossed paths with him in that capacity. He was a part of Leadership Omaha, the 38th class. And when Leadership Omaha came out to the Douglas County Health Center, Andrew expressed an interest in what was going on there. And he initiated contacting us. And we are so thrilled to have him as a part of our team. Currently, he's the general manager for the original franchise for Home Instead Senior Care. A great background for helping us on the foundation. We are thrilled to have him as president. We're about to undertake the biggest capital campaign we've undertaken in quite a while, and that's why I invited Andy here to make the announcement this morning.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you for all of you guys having me here. I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of notify you, let you know kind of what we're doing. So it's fun to bring good news to this board, and that's what this is. So I'm speaking on behalf of the Douglas County Health Center Foundation. Our mission at the foundation is to enhance the lives of our residents at the Douglas County Health Center. There's about 250 residents. And so we've been doing it now for 25 years, which is fantastic. Claire, I think, is one of the original members, and Gail as well. So lots of rich history. What we have found over listening and hearing from residents is one of the main things that they're asking for are new bathtubs, whirlpools. So you all have a picture of those. The original ones were put in 1974. And so even from the starting of our foundation, they're already old. These bathtubs are used to bathe residents who cannot stand in showers. In the current ones, they have to be hoisted up by a Hoyer lift and then placed into the tub. And then when done bathing, they get hoisted out and brought back out of the tub for drying and all of those other kinds of things. That does not need to happen. In the current state, there are doors and ways where you can get wheelchairs and different types of things where they can transition very easily through a door in a new tub. So we are looking at doing a campaign, and we're calling it Operation Rubber Ducky, just to hopefully draw on a few people, make it appealing. But this operation is going to replace 10 neighborhoods bathing areas. And to replace one bathing area, it's about $100,000 for the tub and then some other changes that need to happen structurally. And so we want to do 10 of them, so it's $1 million ask that we are embarking on for this year. So we are going to put a lot of our efforts, fundraising campaigns. We do a mid-year and end-of-year appeals and different types of things. Omaha Gives, we're just getting ramped up for. And so all of the next few years are going to be really focused at driving this improvements to our residents at the health center. And so we've already initiated, some public properties have been involved in the process in helping us understand costs and those kinds of things, so we get a real understanding of what it is. So this would probably be one of the bigger things we've ever done, next to the solarium that we've done a couple of years ago. And so I just wanted to bring this in front of you to notify you of what we're trying to do, to let you know of all the great work that the foundation is doing for the health center and its residents. And at that, I'm done. So if you guys have any questions, please.
Andy, I just wanted to say thanks for all you do. You're a great example of civic involvement. We really appreciate it. As a member of the foundation board, I'm particularly proud of the hard work that you've done. It's a great initiative.
The last tubs installed were installed when my father was here on the board, and I think it's probably time, maybe for reinvestment in the best thing that Douglas County does, the Douglas County Health Center. So, super job. I look forward to the successful completion of this, and rubber duckies, gotta love it.
Yeah, right?
Thanks, pal.
Thank you.
Commissioner Borges?
Hi, thank you, and thanks for your service on the foundation. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Does the $100,000, does that include the cost of construction that we have to do through the
Yes.
public property? So it's $100,000 for each one of the areas,
Neighborhoods.
and you want to do 10 of them?
10 of them,
Okay,
yes.
perfect, thanks.
Roughly, the tub itself is about 25,000. I mean, we all know the building, what a stout building. It costs a whole lot more to install the tub than it does to actually buy it. The purchase is a small fraction of it, but this is based on meetings. We're getting wonderful help from Jerry Leahy and Jeff McGill, and they had a long meeting yesterday. They're going to try to do these in pairs, so you do one above the other because of the plumbing. So try to do them two at a time as we accrue the money. But most of the money that you're seeing there is the installation.
And then just lastly, did the foundation talk about a social media campaign for this event, or this capital campaign?
Yeah, so
Okay.
we do have a Facebook page and a website, and we are ramping up
You
our
are
efforts
using that, okay.
towards
All
those,
right,
yes.
perfect, great, thanks.
Okay, think you're good.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you for volunteering. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
With that, we'll go to item B in the presentation of the 2020 Census Participation Statistical Area Program on the proposed boundary changes for Douglas County. Mike Shamlo.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mike Shonlaw, Douglas County GIS. I'm just going to pull up a website here real quick. I promise this will be short and painless.
I'd like a point of personal privilege. You really got some instant maps for me on 2 occasions that were very important for meetings, and I just appreciate your response, your accuracy. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. We've got a great staff. Besides Steve, we've got a great staff. No. We really do have a great staff up there, so it's...
You know, and
it's,
that's what good managers always say. They always pass it on, so that's another star for you.
We're pretty fortunate up there, so. Okay, so I'd like to just give you a brief presentation on some proposed changes by the Census Bureau that impact Douglas County as well as the city of Omaha. This little map that I've pulled up here was produced by MAPPA. I actually put this together, and MAPPA's done most of the legwork on doing some of the research into this, as well as some folks from UNO as well. But I thought I'd bring it to your attention because this is the only time in the next 10 years that these changes can be made. What we're talking about here are changes to census boundaries, specifically census tracts and census block groups. These only are changed every decennial census. And so this program, the PSAP program, is designed to give the Census Bureau an opportunity to change those boundaries to better meet their population targets. And it also is an opportunity for the local governments to review those proposed changes to see if they make sense based on what they know about their local community or propose other changes. So we'll go through just a few of these just to give you an idea of what we're looking at here. And he's got the numbers here. So basically, there are 5 total census tract proposed changes, and there are 21 total census block group changes. And most of these are either splits, where they're taking an existing census tract and splitting it because population has changed in those areas, and now they need to be split so they meet the census population targets. In some cases on the block groups, they're merging block groups to, again, achieve those population targets. And there's just a couple of here that I want to point out that may be of interest. Many of these are based on development that's happened over the past 10 years. But a couple of them are a little bit different. This one that I have on the screen now is tract 74.05. This is the Boys Town and West Farm and Linden Estates area, right off of 144th and Dodge. And currently, this boundary is one census tract. And those three areas are very different. Boys Town has a very different demographic and housing unit count than, say, the Linden Estates neighborhood to the north. And then you have the West Farm development, which is very new and hasn't been fully developed yet. So, and I apologize, in the handout that you probably have, that this is not on there. This is a late edition.
Oh, okay.
So you'll have to look on the screen for this one.
Okay.
This is, the city of Omaha brought this one up, and MAP has added this. But this is one that it probably makes sense. What we're trying to request here, what MAP is proposing back to the census, is that Boys Town be split into its own census tract. The Boys Town West Farm area, because it's a special use case, and that the Linden Estates neighborhood to the north would become its own tract as well. And they've prepared this information along with the population numbers, the housing units, and those things. So that's one of the tract proposed changes for Douglas County. Another one that has probably more of an impact will be the one that's downtown here. So this is tract 18. There is, the pages on there are probably a little different. There should be a title on the page, it's Douglas Tract 18, hopefully in that handout. This is the downtown area, the census tract that covers most of downtown.
Is there a 7 on it? Where, is it at the top?
It's on the bottom right hand, it's a 7 of 35.
Oh, 7 of 35, okay.
Thank you. I should have had that. This tract has undergone a lot of change over the past 10 years. And so the census is proposing this be split into two tracts, an east and a west half. And not only has the population changed, gone up, densified in this area, but the average, the median income has gone up. So two things are probably going to happen with this. This tract will be split into two tracts, and it will also no longer be an opportunity zone. The opportunity zones are based on median income, and some of the information, some of the numbers around that are presented here. And it appears that this will no longer be an opportunity zone after the 2020 census comes out. I'm not an expert in opportunity zones. I do know that they offer developers, they could be used to offer development tax relief. I'm probably not the best person to talk about an opportunity zone.
What are the boundaries of these streets roughly?
Well, it goes east to the river. On the west side, let's zoom in here and take a look. So that looks like, let me put my glasses on there, 20th Street on the west side. And then on the north here, looks like Dodge Street. And on the south, it looks like Pacific for the most part. It kind of jogs in and out a little bit there.
Thanks.
Sure. So that's one of the bigger tracks that would impact.
Mike, hold on. You got somebody on this, Marion, you on this topic?
Sorry.
So, either way, I just want to make a note of if we lose an opportunity zone, can somebody check to see if we can add an opportunity zone in another area? And the specific area to which I'm wanting to look is our health center, youth center area, to see, as we talk about mental health services in the for the existing site of where the youth center is there a way to create an opportunity zone in that area for us to take advantage of? And again, if it's based on income and stuff, I don't know, but can we look at that? If we're losing one, can we create one in
Right.
another area? So,
Certainly, our office could do a little homework to learn more about that
Okay.
opportunity zone process and maybe work with MAPPA to determine what that median income is right now to see
and
if it
Patrick
possibly
has
qualifies.
looked into it for me too, so we're just, really at the 10,000-foot level. But this may be,
Yeah.
present us with an opportunity, I don't know. I
Good
don't
idea.
know how that.
Commissioner Boyle and Commissioner Morgan.
Who made these decisions, and is this available on the internet or anyplace, these maps?
Yes, so what we're looking at here is a presentation MAPPA put together. They kind of summarized all of the proposed changes. The Census Bureau proposed these changes.
Okay.
Because MAPPA is the
Right.
official statistical group that looks at this information. They put together this information. We have until the 24th of May. When I say we, Douglas County, City of Omaha, MAPPA, have until 24th of May officially to present new changes
Okay.
or reject proposed changes.
To whom do we make those presentations?
MAPPA will make that recommendation to the Census Bureau, and there's some flexibility on that. If
Okay.
one of the organizations, one of the jurisdictions wanted more time, there's likelihood that we could get an extension of that. But basically, if Douglas County had an issue with any of these changes or wanted to propose a different change, we could submit that information to MAPPA, and MAPPA then would submit that back to the Census Bureau on our behalf.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Morgan.
I think that area that you've just talked about, Mary Ann, going over even south of Leavenworth would probably be a likable spot for an opportunity zone. The other thing is, I'm just wondering, the purpose of this, where you're dividing, tell me why. I mean, you're not really changing it that much. I'm just wondering, why are we doing it?
Well, it's mostly because of the census. They do this across the country. They try to, every decennial census, let me back up a little bit. One of the things that doesn't change every year is the census boundaries. They only change every 10 years. So because those changes don't take place for 10 years, it's worth a review, every time the decennial census comes up to make sure they still make sense. So the census goes through all these communities and they have population and housing unit targets for each census geography. So for example, census tracts, and on the very first, I'm going to jump back up here to the very first slide, or I'm sorry, the second slide. There's a little information about this. The Census Bureau has some population minimums and maximums for census tracts. Minimum's 1,200, a max is 8,000. Their sweet spot, the optimal, is about 4,000 people. So if everything were ideal, every census tract in America would have 4,000 people in it. Well, everything's not ideal, so they try to get as close to that every decennial census as possible. So this review has gone through the greater Omaha area, including Douglas County, and they've looked at current population numbers from their ACS, the American Community Survey Program, and talking with groups like MAPPA to determine where do we need to make some changes. And that's what you're seeing here is the result of that review.
So Mike, you and your people do a great job, and, you've been here a good time at Douglas County.
Appreciate that.
So is this more for, like, the congressional races? Is that the reason? Because you're still in Douglas County, in the city of Omaha or whatever.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, and you're not doing the kind of thing that for TIF or something like that. I mean, the city determines that, the opportunities zones are determined by someone else on the median income and so on. But is it more for that purpose that they're doing that sort of thing, like the Boys Town situation out there, the population?
Well, it's more generalized than that, really. I mean, census boundaries, census tracts, census block groups, and census blocks are used for many, many different analyses and are used as the population boundaries that are used in many other calculations. So, for example, if you were going to calculate a legislative district based on population, you
Okay.
would use the census boundaries to do that.
That's what I thought.
So there are a lot of things that these boundaries can affect down the road. And again, because it only changes every 10 years, that's why it's at least important to have a look at it. You know, more information is better than less information in this case. So in MAPPA's review, though, most of these changes are pretty straightforward. They're mostly based on just adjusting the population counts. I showed those two because I thought those two were a little bit unique and at least worth your knowledge to know that those things might change, especially the downtown one. Having one census tract cover the whole downtown area for 10 years is going to be different when it's split into two. We're more facilitating the message here from the census and MAPPA, but I wanted to make sure you were aware of these proposed changes. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So along that line, if we were just to take one of them and look at it, so on page 4 of 35, the current population in that census tract, if I'm reading this right, is 7,703. But we're looking now to split that.
And which census tract is that?
Is that 75.12 on page?
7512. Right here.
Yep.
That's the one on
4
192nd
of
Street.
35 on the handout. So I'm just wanting to make sure I'm reading it. So the goal, I guess, is to make sure that they're not over 4,000 in a census tract?
They can be over 4. They can be up to 8,000.
Oh, 8,000.
So the max is 8,000. 4,000 is the optimal.
4,000 is the optimal.
And 1,200 is the minimum.
And it looks like that's what we're actually shooting for, is to get it the closest that we can, or below the 4,000.
That's usually,
That's the.
by getting it to that gives the most optimal statistical analysis
Data
value,
analysis,
I guess.
yeah.
You get the best statistical data out of that. You're getting closer to apples is maybe a better way to say it. That particular tract there, that 7512, is an example of one where development has occurred, population is increasing, they're projecting population to increase, so they're splitting the tract now, or they're proposing to split that tract now because they believe both those tracts will be in that, closer to that 4,000 population.
And so on the surface, you know, when we read this originally, it was like, yeah, that makes sense, you know. But what, are there cons to this that we should be aware of that?
I wish I had a magic answer for that. One of the things I did, and to answer that question, one of the things I did is make sure I presented this information to all the county department directors. Many different programs are impacted by census boundaries, and our department certainly is not aware of all of those programs. There are a lot of them out there. So we wanted to make sure the people who do work within programs that are impacted by this were notified. So we have sent the information out, and I've asked that any questions or concerns about these proposed changes from the county departments, if they'd send those back to me so I can get that information to you if we get that. As of this point, I haven't heard of any concerns yet. The City of Omaha also has reviewed all of these. The only change that they had come up with was that Linden Estates, Boys Town, West Farm area because of its uniqueness. Other than that, they've so far also supported all these proposed changes. So it doesn't, from my perspective, I don't see anything radical here making a dramatic difference. It's just more it's good to be aware that these things will change, and don't want to take anyone by surprise within the next 10 years, because they'll be there for a while, so.
We may want to just send out a reminder to the department heads to make sure to not forget to look at that, and it would be worth just a comment back of no change, so we know for
Okay.
sure. 'Cause I don't want to be last minute, have a surprise that we weren't.
Yes, and then I'll send out the revised version of this as well.
Okay, great.
I think the link I sent out actually has
Yeah,
the revisions,
it
but I'll
has
make
it.
sure to do that.
Okay, great, thanks.
That's it, Mike.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
We'll move on to item 7 and the committee discussions. Item letter A is the Finance Committee. Item 1 is the budget report. Commissioner Morgan?
As presented.
As presented. With that, we'll go on to item C, which is the Child and Youth Service Committee, and item 1 is the monthly Douglas County Youth Center report. Brad? Yeah, at the end. Thanks. Morning.
Brad Alexander with the Douglas County Youth Center, and we're here to present our monthly report for March, so we will get started, and I think you all have the handouts that Dan was nice enough to pass around. So if we could, we'll start on slide number 3, please. So 2019, January, February, March, we've had 3 students that have received their diplomas while at the youth center. Again, those diplomas are awarded through their home school. And generally, when we have the ceremony, there's a representative from the home school that shows up and participates in the graduation ceremony. Moving to slide number 5. The Parent-Teachers Conference in January, we had 34 parents that participated in that conference. And we have the next one scheduled for May 13th to allow parents to come up and see how their kids are doing and get an opportunity to meet some of the teachers and the people that work with their kids. We'll just move to the next slide. We had the career fair April 26th. I had 14 participants marked, just organizations that participated in the career fair, and Mark corrected me, it was actually 13, but we certainly appreciate all those people that took the time to come up to the youth center and share information with the kids there. And the next conference is obviously not scheduled for April. It's scheduled for September of 2019. We had a parents' meeting in April, and thank you, Commissioner Kraft and Commissioner Morgan, for taking the time to attend that. The next one will be May 6th. It's an opportunity for us to educate parents about the services that are available to their children while they're at the youth center, and then certainly to update them on their academic progress. And I think it's just as important that they have an opportunity to meet the people that are actually working with their kids while they're at the youth center. I think that provides a... Yeah, I think it's 11 o'clock, isn't it?
Yeah, we actually started
11:30.
11:30 on the 6th, okay, thank you.
And we'll send some information out on that, too. So, yeah, and additionally, the opportunity to meet the parents and receive their feedback is really, really important to us as well. And we've got Qualtrics developing a tool that's going to help us to monitor and report on that feedback. They're actually meeting with our Career Center coordinator right this morning. They've developed a draft survey, and so that's being delivered to us this morning, and we'll learn more about that this afternoon, and hopefully we'll get that started here before too long. Foster grandparents, I've taken this off the agenda, but it's back on. We actually have one, and She is scheduled to start in May. The MOU is being drafted, and it's just some formalities that are taking place right now. But we're feeling pretty confident that we're going to have somebody with us to provide kind of that generational relationship with those kids, which I think is really valuable, and hopefully that'll be happening here soon. The psychiatrics, in the next slide, the psychiatric services program with us, UNMC, Charles, Drew, and Creighton. So Dr. Zuha, he has started on April 1, and he is providing med management, and he's conducting some evaluations, hopefully to move those things along a little bit quicker. The navigator, who's going to be an employee of Charles Drew, they're going to come to the youth center. They're going to spend time with, Greg's going to introduce them around, and they're going to get an opportunity to meet some of the kids and develop some relationships. And then that's going to be important because when they transition out, they're going to have a familiar face, somebody that they know that's going to work with them going forward. And I have here May 1st, but I think that got moved back to May 3rd, right? The supervisor. You started today? Okay, good. So the supervisor from Charles Drew started to we'll start spending some time with Greg today. And that's while they're in the process of getting that position hired through Charles Drew, but we wanted to at least get going. All right, next slide. So January 1 through March 31, the average daily population has been 83. The average length of stay, correct that 23 is for overall for the month of March solely. So for January, February, and March, the average length of stay for all kids that come to us is actually 20 days. And then we're forecasting, based on what we see in January, February, and March, that we will have 972 admissions by the end of calendar year 2019. Move to slide number 15, please. This is the average length of stay for the kids that are with us for more than 24 hours, which is historically how we've reported that statistic. So you can see that if they're there longer than 24 hours, the kids that are not on probation average 44 days. Those that are on probation average 34 days. The adult court kids, 112. And then the overall length of stay for those that are with us for more than 24 hours is 47 days. The next slide is those that are with us for less than 24 hours. So you see the number of juveniles not on probation, the number of juveniles on probation, and the number in adult court. So when you look over and you see that average, it says 22.92 or 2.5. That's not hours, that's actual kids that have come to us. So overall, if the average for the length of stay for those that are with us less than 24 hours is 3.7 hours. So when you combine all of the kids that come to us, we end up with an average length of stay of 20 days for January, February, and March. The next slide, and these are forecasted numbers for 2019. We're forecasting 408 admissions for adjudicated youth, 496 for pre-adjudicated, 68 for pretrial, and a total of 972 admissions is what we're forecasting for 2019. Moving to slide 23, please. And these are the reasons that the kids are coming to us. 65% of the kids that are coming to us now, so far in 2019, are coming to us with new charges. The CAPIAS unlawful absence, violation of probation, which you combine those, that's 30%. Those are all probation kids. Juvenile court hold 1%, failure to appear in juvenile court 4%, and then failure to appear in county court is less than 1%. Next slide, 24. So when they do come to us on new charges, these are the charges that we're seeing. It's kind of a top 10 for us, and it represents actually 81% of all admissions to the youth center on new charges. Robbery, 16%, assault and domestic assault, 13%, theft by unlawful taking, 11%, terroristic threats, 9%, theft by receiving, 8%, unlawful occupancy, 7%, gun charges, 6%, burglary and attempted burglary, 4%, possession of controlled substance, 4%, sexual assault, 3%. Next slide is the admissions by race. So you can read the raw numbers, and again, those are forecasted numbers for 2019, but the percentages, 59% is what we're tracking for African American admissions, 18% for Caucasian, 20% for Hispanic/Mexican, 2% for Native American, and 2% for Asian. And on to slide number 27. The home program, the average daily population is an actual number for January, February, March. So we've averaged 30 kids on the home program. We are forecasting 208 admissions, and 76 of those would be successful completions. So that's rising. I don't know if you remember last month that projection for the successful completions was down quite a bit, but we'd had so many new admissions, we kind of figured that that would catch up. And it's moving in the right direction, and hopefully when I report to you in May that we'll see that number come up even further. Slide number 29. So this is a forecast for the academic credits earned for the kids that are at the youth center. We're forecasting 864 full credits and 184 partial credits for the kids that the kids will earn while they spend time with us at the Douglas County Youth Center. Slide 31, the individual education plans for the kids that come to us. We're projecting that we were going to receive 148 kids with IEPs in 2019, and this is, I hope this trend continues. I wish obviously that it would be fewer than 60, but it's moving. It appears to be moving in the right direction in terms of the kids that are returning to us with IEPs. And we've felt for some time that that was a number that we could really get our hands around and try to have an impact on in terms of recidivism, and I hope that that number continues to fall. Slide 35, please. Medical, mental health, these are all projected numbers. So 900, we're expecting that our pediatrician and practitioners are going to see 936 contact with youth, mental health crisis intervention 2,034, and then nurses sick call 3,356. So they are some busy folks. Slide 37. And this is the medication that we see the young people are being prescribed while at the youth center. They're actually, of course, arriving to us with these prescriptions, and there are occasions where something might be prescribed while they're with us, but psychotropics is 13, which is the number one, and then actually antidepressants, 12. And I'm looking at the average column to your right, and then stimulants, 8, and then asthmatics, 10. So those are the medications that were the most common medications that we're seeing prescribed to the kids at the youth center. The next slide has to do with, and this is a slide that we just added this year, but the psychiatric diagnosis. So you can see the numbers there, and one of the things when I was receiving these numbers that kind of stuck out with me was the 24 up from, I'm looking at depression. January was 6, February 1, and then 24 in March. Obviously a significant jump, so I spoke with our psychologist and what they intend to do, and I learned something. I learned that there's such a thing as this depressive spectrum, and so many things kind of fall underneath this depressive spectrum. So they're actually going to, while the diagnosis specifically might be unique to kids, for our purposes here, we're going to combine those numbers so you don't see that dramatic kind of up and down. It should be, I think, a more accurate picture of what we're seeing at the youth center. And what's that? We're going to combine depression and mood disorder, and it's going to fall underneath what is referred to as a depressive spectrum.
Okay.
Next slide, sexual transmitted diseases. These are forecasted numbers. So it looks like we'll test 644 kids, and based on what we're seeing right now, the number that are positive or testing positive, we're forecasting would be 48. Again, everybody wishes the number would be 0, but when you look back to 109 in 2017 and 117 in 2016, looks like we're moving in the right direction, and I hope, as I'm sure we all do, that will continue. And then on to slide 41, and that ends my presentation.
Greg, you want to comment, then we'll take all the questions at once?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I apologize in advance. Had some technical difficulties with the printing again, so the fonts are small. I actually wasn't able to enlarge them slightly for the purpose of the meeting, but I added a column, and then I also, for Commissioner Kraft, I added the distinctions under there that you were wanting, and for some reason it didn't allow me to print. So I'll make sure to get you all a copy of that via email through Brad. In terms of expediting, things are running as fluidly. We're doing our expediting team meetings on a weekly basis right before our MDT meetings, which consists of the representation from probation, from county attorney's office, and from public defender's office, and myself, and Mark as well joins us. We're able to move along cases pretty fluidly in terms of just talking through situations. We also have come to a point of distinction to where we're looking at specific things. We're looking at those youth who are on the expediting list that we send out weekly. And then we're also looking at youth who do not have any type of plan in place yet. So we've been able to distinguish those, and we've been able to add 5 to 7 names on a weekly basis to that list. So that's been really productive for us as well, too. It's been really productive in terms of things outside of the expediting meeting as well, too. Been meeting with schools, with the SSLs at the schools, met with thus far Benson, met with Lewis and Clark, and then we have Monroe on tap to meet with them as well. Looking at establishing lines of communication between the schools and those youth who could possibly transition back into school a little bit earlier. And for those who may be going to placement or just maybe they may have a longer waiting time before they're released, having some point of contact that each youth has there at the school, whether that be a coach, whether it be a teacher or an administrator, having some type of contact between them. So they've all been really receptive to that, so it's gone over well in terms of that. Just a few things that I've highlighted for this month. Really tried to put an emphasis on youth that have been there for longer than 90 days, and we've got 24 youth that fit that bill right now. Of those, 7 of them are there for some type of violence. We have 5 that are there for robbery specifically, and some of those also include, could be unlawful absence, could be violation of probation, for that as well. 3 that are there on gun charges, 1 sexual assault, a couple of holds, and then 1 immediate custody as well, too. So those are some of the things that we're looking at specifically for there. Of those 24, there are 7 that have been there for 90 days or longer, which are specifically juvenile charges. The additional 17 are there with some type of county charge, so they're there for adult court as well, too. Of those 7, several of them they're there, I think, on a longer basis because now they've gone through a transfer, so motion to transfer from adult to juvenile. Some of them are there for a motion to revoke, and then a couple of them are waiting on evaluations, and then there's been 1 who's been denied at several placements, so just having some type of specific placement that he'll be accepted to has been one of the primary holdup for him. In addition to that, one thing that I noticed as well is that There are a lot of orders that have been coming out for out-of-home placement, but when you look at the nature of the charges that go along with it, there's a requirement for it. And then some of them also have high recidivism rates as well too. So they've kind of exhausted all of the services that probation has afforded them as well too. So those are kind of the things that, in a nutshell, that been working on over the past month.
Commissioner Boyle and Commissioner Kraft.
Yes, I really thank you, and I understand the technical difficulties. That's my daily event. So no problem. I appreciate your saying something different. I have some questions about there's a plan to divert young boys and young girls from coming to your facility, no offense intended. But, and part of it is that I think the boys are supposed to go to Omaha Home for Boys, girls to Utah Holly. And I wonder, first of all, it seems to me that we need to have some cooperation from the police. I was at a meeting and I asked if the police have any officer training how to arrest and work with juveniles. And Tom Riley was there, and he said, yeah, they have the gang unit, which is unfortunately about what they focus on. And I think we need to talk to the police, the chief and so forth, and make sure, if we haven't already, that we do have people just like they're supposed to be dealing with the mentally ill and others, that we have some focus on when something happens at home, that they send a police officer who is not, just came from arresting a murderer or somebody, somebody who's tuned into this kind of thing. I really think we need to focus on that. Another one is, I think we need to be speaking to the prosecutor, because when I went to law school, it was really interesting. The professor said to me, if you're interested in really helping people and making sure people get justice, he said, don't go to work for the public defender, go to work for the county attorney, because they're the ones who bring the charges. And that in itself is enough, because prosecutors are, I think at the end of the year, I mean, how many people have you prosecuted? That's your job. And how have you, what's your number? It's not how many of you diverted, and that's just not in the picture of things. Right. So that's a county attorney thing, and the PD and public defender ought to be involved in that as well. I wonder whether, and I was in Washington recently, and I had some downtime, and I was channel surfing, and I came across the Washington, D.C. Public School Board meeting, which was actually pretty interesting. And one of the things they did is they're so frustrated at being able to get to what's causing these problems with children, is they are now going into homes, and it's awfully controversial. But they're finding homes with no food, they're finding really bad conditions, the houses themselves are difficult, some of the children are sleeping on blankets on the floor, and all sorts of things going on. And they found children that had no washer and dryer in their home, so they were taking action to try to create that. And I don't know if we can ever get to that, I don't know if we ever want to, but it's something I think that we need to get to the core, because what I hear all the time, and I think all of us do, when people come down and talk to us about, don't incarcerate these kids, solve the problems. Well, we really don't have the ability or the authority, and there's so many people involved in this, from the public and private schools to your operations, to the county attorney, to the police, and there's so many moving parts that we really have to come to some decision about what is it we're going to do and how are we going to try to solve these problems. One of the other things too is that I saw this in here about the children suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and so forth, and those are really serious trauma and all the rest of it. And Commissioner Borgeson brought someone in here. It was really interesting. I think we're still operating. She'll know. But about people who've had brain injuries, children who've been hit and abused and so forth, and the things that happen physically to a person's brain can affect their actions. But also seeing a cousin shot in the face and all this kind of thing, those things really, they're embedded, as we all know. So trauma is another thing that really, and I know there's some things we're doing on trauma, which is really good. And I think asthma, I look at that and I see that, and that's, asthma is a plague on poor people. It is I don't know that for sure, I shouldn't say that, but I think that it is, because I see that constantly about asthma from children, particularly from the north side, and poor children. Something's going on that we need to get into that, and the health department's been working on that too. Something else that bothers me, and then I've got a couple more questions. I'll try to quit talking and ask a question, but violation of probation, I look at some of these things, it's kind of like suspending a person's driver's license. it's setting them up to, for trouble, where in the court system, when they say, okay, come back and you're on probation and then there's a violation. When they violate it, then it starts a tunnel problem where they're going down. And they already are not young people who follow rules, and they're people who, they don't have a lot of access to even finding out if they're violating the probation. I mean, come back on, May 14th. Well, how the hell do they find that out? I mean, is it a postcard? Are you kidding? Anyway, so I think those are some of the things that I think we have some problems that are built right into the system that cause, even for, it's not your doing, but to me, it causes some of these things that happen. And I'm curious about I'm really excited about the psychiatric services, and is that provided at our facility, or do they go to Charles Drew? Is it at our facility?
It'll be, go ahead, Marty.
Excellent observations.
Pardon me?
Your observations, I think, were spot on.
Thanks.
Yes, the Charles Drew piece is part of the mental health partnership that we have with Creighton and UNMC and Charles Drew. And the process is, as Brad alluded, making contact with Charles Drew and having some of those services available for our students while they're there, in the hope of continuing that connection, and not just for the youth, but also for the family as well.
Is it at Charles Drew?
The services will be available directly at Charles Drew.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good. Then I have some, I'll stop asking these questions. I've got a whole slew of them here, and I think some of you covered, but on slide 15, there's an average length of stay, and I'm really curious about, and I see what they are. I mean, they're probation, adult court, and all that. But I wonder what the charges are. And again, this goes to the prosecutor, The prosecutor puts some heavy-duty charges that starts the whole thing rolling in the way that it ends up. And I'm really concerned about if there's any way to help that child who's done those things before this progresses, and then he gets, a violating of probation, and then all this other stuff, and then it just starts going right down, and pretty soon he finds himself, when he gets old enough, in our facility down the street, I'm curious about, and I don't know if there's an answer, but I'm curious about what the charges are, and I'd also like to know by race. We attended a meeting, Commissioner Borgeson and Commissioner Rogers were there. We attended a meeting at the Goodwill offices on 72nd Street. It was, to me, a really eye-opener about how law enforcement and others, us, how white people, and even some African Americans and others with dark skin, respond to other people with dark skin. A child with dark skin, a Sudanese or some other thing, some other race, I don't mean to say thing, but some other race with dark skin is immediately looked upon as a predator. I mean, it's really unbelievable, but I think it happens. And so I really wonder, how in the world do we ever get out of that situation? But, so I'm curious if, by what the race is on page 15, the charges and the race.
I don't know if this answers your question, but on slide 24, those are the top 10 offenses, and that would probably capture most of those kids that you see on that length of stay for those that are not on probation. Those are the kids with new charges coming into us.
Okay.
And that's the robbery, assault, theft, terroristic threats, and so forth.
And I have a question on that, too. I wonder how, of course, I don't know what unlawful occupancy is. What is that, do you know?
You're residing in a place that you shouldn't be residing. We got somebody sent us the statute. I think Commissioner Kraft asked that same question
Really?
last month.
Oh, I guess I wasn't listening to him, sorry.
Never listened to me.
I'm curious with the changes that are coming, and it's very hopeful, about having these alternative places where young people can go so they don't end up in your facility. I really wonder whether on this page 24, whether these offenses will drop. I mean, I don't see a young man who's made a terroristic threat being taken to the Omaha Home for Boys. I really see your population, this says to me your population is going to stay where it is. I mean, I just don't see these offenses will not be sent to these alternative sites. These children, gun charges and robbery and stuff, they're not going to go to the mall for boys. So I guess I'm just putting up a big red flag. I think this is gonna be the same. I don't think it's gonna change when we make these change, we build a new facility across the street and all the rest of it, and we have these alternative sites. I don't see how this can drop. And there's no answer to
There
this.
really isn't, no.
So just a comment, I think we're kind of fooling ourselves if we think that everybody's gonna behave and we're gonna send them to Omaha Home for Boys. I think this is gonna stay, it's just as it is. I've got a few other questions, but those are really the ones that I'm seriously concerned about. I do appreciate your presentations, and also I have to tell you, thanks for numbering the pages.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Before we go to the next question, Mike, let me clear up a couple of thoughts. I disagree wholeheartedly on this point with the numbers. What's your count today, 73?
84.
Today?
Yeah, 84 today.
The form,
73 males, 11 females, for a total of 84.
so I'm reading the form right, wrong.
It's, you see the males, and it'll show 73, and then the females, right below it shows 11, so there's 84, and then there's 26 on the home program.
You counting the home program?
No.
Okay.
No.
So the number, okay. All right, I read that wrong. All right. Back to the point, I don't agree with that wholeheartedly from that point. I don't agree with what you're saying in regards to saying that the program piece won't be effective. But let me say, you made an earlier point, and you mixed up two of the pieces and the process on it, so I just want to make sure that that's clear. When you mentioned the Utah Holly and the Omaha Home for Boys pieces, those aren't before the police aren't just sending them there, and that's how I thought I heard it. They have to go through the court process, and probation then will determine if they're there. That'll be that decision made by them, but the one that you're referring to that the police are consulted on is the project with CSI, and they're waiting for the state to give them approval for the database management and security pieces. So that's the piece where I think they're starting with some low-level misdemeanors and a couple other classes to where they won't be going to DCYC to do that. They'll be taking those to CSI, and the police are intimately involved in that. So I just wanted to correct that one. Commissioner Kraft.
Yeah, on the home program, that's the ankle monitors, and I said that for people out in the audience.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully there are some. By the way, Mike, I never listen to you. Okay. Okay, back to, that's determined by the courts or probation.
Those kids that are on the home program are not involved in probation at that time. So the courts make them eligible for the home program, and then the home program has an opportunity to meet with the child and their family and make a decision. And almost without exception, if the court says that they are appropriate for the home program, they will go in the home program.
I was noticing the high failure rate. Do the people involved with home program call and give a pep talk weekly or check in? You know, if I'm a youth with an ankle monitor, I'm obviously aware that I'm wearing it. Why do I decide to deviate? What would keep me on the straight and narrow with that monitor on my leg?
Trying to find that slide on the home there it is, slide 27. So if you look, if you can go to slide 27, and if you look back, you know, your goal is always for 100% successful completions. But if you go back to like 2014, you'll notice that proportionately the successful completions represented a much higher number of our total admissions. And then it was when we started to expand the program, and we brought kids in straight from intake. So those kids hadn't been to court yet. It was just another opportunity or another resource available to intake, so that they had a place to go rather than detention. And then we started to work with the kids that were on diversion. And so a lot of times they come to the home program later in that process. They've got numerous truancy violations. And so from the court's perspective and diversion, they don't have a whole lot of wiggle room to make a whole lot of mistakes at that point. And so you see in like 2014 to 2015 a significant drop in our successful completions. And yeah, I think the people on the home program do a really remarkable job of trying to encourage the kids and develop relationships with the kids that they're working with. The goal is for them all to be successful, and we believe they all can be. And we want to be a part of that.
Thank you.
Mr. Morris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 9, when you talked about the program with UNMC and Charles Drew and Creighton and us starting, will there be during one of the parents' meetings a time for them to meet these folks and so that they thoroughly understand what?
I honestly don't know that we've discussed that, but I think that's a really, really good idea, and it'll be a good use of their time. So I don't know that it'll be, we'll be there for the May 6th parents' meeting, but certainly I think in the June.
Right, in the near future, just,
Yeah.
I think it would be important for them to know that and understand that. That was one of, I guess, in my meeting, the takeaway was that theme of services that they were seeking out, actually wanting prior to what occurred with their child being in the youth center. So I think we can gain much more knowledge and understanding from both sides if they meet and talk about that. So so explain to me, if these kids that aren't on probation, why are they there so much longer? Would that not, maybe I'm thinking of this wrong, to me that would be a reason for them to move faster because you don't have as many obstacles in the processes that you have to go through. So what are we doing specifically, and maybe this is more Greg, for those kids that are not on probation but come into the system? What are we doing differently, I guess, to move them faster through the system than those that have to wait for their probation officers, their, whoever else is involved?
But, yeah, and Greg, help me out here. But
The kid we call in those meetings the county kid? Is that the kid she was referring to? That kid that's
I
not
think
on
when they
probation
refer to the
assistant?
county kids, those are the kids in adult court.
No, there's another, that's what I wanted to clarify. There's another class of kids, not the adult kids, but there's another class of juvenile kids. It's not probation, but that's there. And the term we use, the county kid, that if we
Yeah,
need
that
to
could be
find a service for.
The pre-adjudicated kids in
Yeah,
juvenile court.
so this is what she's referring to. Okay, I just want to make sure.
So when they come to us and they're not under probation, of course, they're going to have their detention hearing immediately. And then oftentimes, they will be asked or required to have some sort of an evaluation. And then probation's responsible for making sure that that happens. And then after the evaluation, they go to an adjudication hearing and then ultimately a disposition. And then if probation, probation will become involved at that point, and then it's a matter of finding a placement. So all of those steps are still in place. I actually think the violation of probation length of stay should even be shorter because they've been through all of that work, and now it's just a matter of they've committed some sort of a technical violation, so how are we going to address that? To me, that length of stay and that number of kids should be much lower than what we see. And yeah, the violation of probation kids are down, yeah.
Yeah, I have seen movement on those violation of probations being expedited a little bit quicker. The only thing I'd add that on to Brad's statement is that some of those pre-adjudicated kids may come in as HHS services as well too. And so sometimes if they have HHS services, then there can be a little bit of a longer gap or delay within that process. So that's the only thing I've noticed.
Okay, thank you. I guess there's, to me, to map out somehow what processes we need to kind of kick faster down the process would be helpful for us. And if it is HHS, if it is, an evaluation or whatever, that would be good to know so that we can figure out what processes or what capacities we need to build within the system to make that movement happen faster.
Correct.
And actually, that's part of our process, that's in line now. This rollout is still new for us, but we see that there's different models that are available that we're seeing folks are having success with as far as the mental health area is concerned. And certainly the hope is that by having the mental health service available, it'll give us a chance to get youth out sooner, certainly with the evals being done. But I think case in point, to be able to provide services not just for that youth, but also for the family. And that's really the saving grace with the partnership with Charles Drew, because we want to make sure that it's a successful return to home when that occurs, and that gives us a chance to make sure there's a softer landing. As very much as Greg said with regards to the school districts as well, working through those SSLs to identify individuals at the school that can come and meet with the students, where we're working with them in partnership with that 95% attendance goal that the school district has. And we're just going to keep trying things that will hopefully make it successful for the students and the families. And kind of on a different note, I just like to say thanks to you and Commissioner Rogers and Commissioner Boyle for coming to the DMC forum. It certainly did lead a lot of credence to the efforts that's being done in that area. And I just want to make sure publicly thank you and appreciated your coming.
Well, that actually, Mark, that stay there, because that is one of the other things I want to talk about in terms of the work that the DMC committee is doing. And again, I won't get into all the details, but I was disappointed in the direction that forum took at the last minute because of events that occurred. But the outcome of it, to me, basically put us back where we needed to be, and that was moving to action. And when Commissioner Boyle was talking about these young folks talking about their experiences or people's perception or what is occurring within the system points of the juvenile system in difference in treatment between races, it was an eye-opener to some, I think. I mean, you can sit here and we know it, but to hear it and see it from these young people, I think really made a big difference, again, to move into action. And those action steps were the conversation about working with law enforcement to get a better understanding and what training is done on the DMC issue, the disproportionate minority contact issue, and the public defenders and county attorneys and the trauma-informed efforts that are going on throughout the county in training folks. The conversation about our system and the need for reform within probation, that a kid should not and a family should not be sentenced to probation for life because of what the child has done or may do 3 times. Again, if you've served your time and you've been on probation, there should be a stopgap effort, and I think that we need to look at that legislation because, again, to me, that causes trauma of a family knowing that you have someone looking over your shoulder constantly, and any mistake can be construed in a different manner by some, and it's a problem, in my opinion, and so I think we need to work on that. But the DMC committee and the work that it has done in the past and is currently doing needs to continue, and we need to rise above the other stuff that is going on and stay focused on our work on that. And with you and Levon as co-chairs, I'm very pleased to see that we're planning our next forum for that. And we will just continue to do that and kind of drown out the noise that's occurring. But something's got to give, and we all need to come to the table and work together, because that issue is the number one issue in my book. When we talk about behaviors and different diagnoses, we've talked also, can you give me the update of where we are with working with Clarice Jackson and the voice advocacy group for the dyslexia pilot that we're launching, hopefully?
Well, we went from an MOU to an actual contract, and you were part of that conversation. Right now, we need to negotiate our budget piece.
Okay.
And I think we have a couple of options that may be acceptable to a Voice Advocacy Center.
Okay.
And we're hoping to put closure to that this week.
Okay, good.
But we're really looking forward to having that service available for our students.
Yeah. And again, just for the board's reminder, and Clarice will be coming at some point to give a little bit more in-depth presentation on dyslexia, but the reason we want to do the pilot is because sometimes these children who have dyslexia are undiagnosed. And what happens is that their dyslexia causes them to engage in bad behaviors, which then becomes more of a treatment on the behavioral mental health side than it does the educational, taking care of the dyslexia problem. And so we want to try to figure out if the children that we have in our youth center have this, and whether or not they can be identified and then worked on with the treatment to help them. So especially with our high IEP and learning disabilities that we see with our children coming in, the young people coming in, that that could, and that's what we want to see, whether or not we can make a difference in that.
And that is also the law. That law is in effect
Correct.
this year, OB 1022. So
Yes.
we have to make sure that we're in line with that.
Yes, and we are working with the school districts as well, because again, the hope is as that they go back to their correct school, their neighborhood school, or their home school that they belong to. But we want to make sure that if that is identified, that treatment continues when they go back to the school, so that it doesn't stop just because they leave the youth center. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so that I'm excited to see start. And then lastly, the asthma and the depression, what was the third high one? Asthma, depression, was it? Antidepressants, psychotropics, and asthmatics. Is there a way that, without identifying, obviously, the child, is there a way to work with Mike Shonlow to map where those children are coming from with those issues? And the reason is because I remember back from my healthcare days, asthma in that North Omaha area was a huge issue. And the health system really did take and health department at the time did play a key role in addressing how to not only identify to make sure treatment is there, but then also the environment in which and where the family lived was taken care of. So I just want to see if it matches. I'm thinking it does, but I want to see if that matches with the zip codes in which most of our children are coming from, but specifically with those issues, which zip code are they coming from, so we know that, and maybe we can launch some extra.
We'll see if we can't get Mike out there and sit down with the people that put that together, and
Yeah.
I would think that they should be able to take care of that. yeah.
Well, and I think that would be, we'd be able to match with the health department, the resources that the health department provides in asthma. And maybe it is just identifying the environment or the issues in the home or whatever, that we can work with them on or a health system on, so. To me, the numbers are small enough that we should be able to grab it and really study it and then come up with an action plan to address it, so. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you. The 84 children that are in your care today, are they there under court order?
Yeah, they're all court involved, either
Okay.
through probation or juvenile court or county court or district court.
Okay. The agreement for psychiatric services with UNMC and Charles Drew, I guess in Creighton, that you outline on page 9, is that the agreement that we approved some weeks ago?
Yes.
To spend $30,000 for .1 FTE, full-time equivalent?
Point two, yeah.
I'm sorry?
.2, yes.
.2, okay. So that'd be 8 hours out of a 40-hour week, I suppose, if you were doing it. And that healthcare provider, that 8-hour a week
But I think
person,
that point two is for a pediatrician, or 2 pediatricians, right? And a psychiatrist. And so, 8 times 5 is 40, so what's that, 5, 8? And if you do the math, I think that comes out to about a $150,000 salary or something like that, which I think those people generally make more than that.
Okay, I'm just trying to get this straight. We approved $30,000 to pay for, I believe the contract actually said .1, but if it's .2, that's,
2.1s, the .1 shows up twice. So it's
So
total
we've-
of .2.
so how many people are we talking about? Full-time people? 2 full-time people?
2 at .2.
Okay. 2 people at, if it's a 40-hour work week, 8 hours each, correct?
4 hours each.
4 hours each, 8 hours total.
Correct.
Okay. Those 2 individuals, would they be adolescent psychiatrists, psychologists, nurses? What are they?
One is drug and alcohol, along with a doctor in psychiatry, and the other is a psychiatrist.
Okay. So one is like a drug and alcohol counselor kind of a person?
That's part of his availability,
Okay.
correct?
And the other is
also
a medical
pediatrician.
doctor with a specialty in adolescent psychiatry. Just trying to get straight who we're talking about.
The second one is a psychiatrist.
That's a medical doctor with a specialty in psychiatry, adolescent psychiatry.
I yield to
Well,
your
if you're a
statement.
psychiatrist, you're by definition a medical doctor.
Thank you.
Okay. So one is a doctor and one is a counselor, not a doctor, correct?
Well, they're both doctors.
They're both MDs.
Correct.
Okay. One is a psychiatrist and the other is what?
Based with drug and alcohol.
Zuha
As
is a doctor with the substance
Substance
abuse
abuse.
certification.
Diagnoses.
Okay. And are they currently meeting with children in our care?
One is not.
Okay. Which one is?
Dr. Zuha currently is.
Is that the medical doctor, the drug and alcohol person, or the psychiatrist person?
The drug and alcohol
Okay.
slash
And-
pediatrician.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
So that person is there how many hours a week?
4 hours a week.
Okay.
currently.
And meeting with some of this population of 80-some kids, is that correct?
Yes, identified youth, correct.
Okay. So currently, I'm just trying to get the scope of the progress that we've made since we signed that contract, I guess it was a month or so ago. We have 1 4-hour physician, talking to our kids? Is that what happens? They sit down with the individual children?
They do. And in most cases, a big part of this piece was to be in a position to get evals completed sooner. And he is, in fact, a probation provider. So the opportunity, those are extra hours that weren't available, that are now available with direct use for the youth center.
Is that one of these physicians that we're talking about? I'm
Correct.
just talking about these physicians under this contract.
Yes.
Okay. So one of these physicians does what? I'm sorry.
Is doing evals at the youth center in an attempt to expedite evals being done sooner with the hope of youth being released sooner.
Okay, this is the process whereby the court has ordered a psychological psychiatric evaluation of a child, and that is normally done by the state regional center.
Or
someone-
Department of Probation.
Okay,
is
State Department of
responsible
Probation.
for here.
For which there is a rather substantial backlog, is that correct?
Well, I can't speak for probation, but we certainly have youth that are awaiting evals at our facility.
Right, and I've heard from attorneys representing those youths that those backlogs awaiting evaluation can stretch into months. Is that right?
That's true.
Yeah. So what you're saying is one of these 4-hour-a-week physicians would do those evaluations of individual children to kind of expedite that process?
Actually, both 4 hours a week would be directly responsible to expedite that process.
And is that occurring?
Not currently. Well, there were some systemic changes that occurred. The individual that we thought was going to be available is relocating. So we have to re-identify, which we have identified someone to take the place of the individual that's leaving. And we're going through the processes of making sure all of our ducks are in a row, but we're moving forward with that individual.
I got you. So we're still in the process of implementing this. It's not fully implemented, but we're in the process of getting these 2 4-hour-a-week people on board to do these things
Yes.
with our children.
Yes.
Okay. That occurs at the Douglas County Health Center on 42nd Street, right?
That's correct. The youth center.
Or, I'm sorry, the Douglas County Youth Center on
Yes, sir.
42nd Street, yeah. The role of Utah Holly, Omaha Boys Home for Boys, or CHI that was mentioned here today, is that occurring currently? Do they take children currently?
Well, that's...
Of this population that we have, do any of them go to these other facilities?
I think those are implemented in May, right?
I'm sorry?
I think those are coming online in May, correct?
I'm talking about right now, today.
Yes, there
April
are
30th.
currently opportunities for individuals to leave the youth center and go to Omaha Home for Boys or Utah Holly, but that's driven by probation in the court.
Correct. I mean, these kids, as we've established, are all with you because the court says they are to go to you.
Correct.
In order to go somewhere else, the court would have to say they should go someplace else, right?
Right.
Is that occurring today? The court telling, these children will be placed in these other institutions today?
Yes.
Okay. So how many, if you know, are in any of these other institutions? That would be in excess of the 40 or 84 that we're talking about under your care. Do you have any idea?
How many kids that have been with us that are placed in, that are out
Well,
of-
if I
in
understood
out-of-home
you
places?
correctly, all these kids are subject to court order. That's why they're with you. But you're saying that some kids subject to court order are in these other institutions today. So you have 84 children under court order with you. Do you have any idea how many?
Now, once they leave us, they're no longer in our custody, so I would be guessing, to be
Maybe
honest.
I'm not being clear. You have 84 children under your custody, correct?
Today, yes.
And are any children under court order in these other institutions today, as far as you know?
I'm sure that they are, yeah. I mean, they get release orders to go to different placements all the time, and they're transferred there.
Okay. And when that release order comes to you, it says what? That the child shall be taken from the Douglas County Youth Center to one of these other?
It generally, and Greg sees these every day, but that generally directs probation to, or some organization to transport the youth to a placement.
Okay. And then they're in that placement's care under court order. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
So, I mean, they're not free to wander off on their own. The court has jurisdiction over them.
I'm sure every placement is different, but generally, I would say you're correct, yeah.
Okay, but you don't know the numbers at these other institutions today?
I do not.
The statistics that you give us monthly, and I appreciate this report is always full of good information. On page 26, deals with the monthly admissions by race. And it seems to be pretty consistent with what we've seen for the many months that you've been delivering these reports, which is an average population here, it shows, of about 75, which is slightly lower than our current population today of 84. But it shows of that population, I'm sorry, it's about 80, I guess, if you total up the average column over there. Of that population of 80, 60 are minority children, or roughly 75%. Is that percentage about what we've been experiencing over the last number of years?
I think Mark's the expert here, but I think it's pretty consistent. It might be up a little bit.
Yeah, it's up a little. We've seen an increase of our Hispanic youth, Hispanic and Latino youth, and a decrease of Caucasian youth. African-American youth has remained pretty much the same in that 60 percentile area.
And those youths, I think there was information provided by the Juvenile Probation Office. The majority of those youths come from essentially two geographic areas. We were talking about geographic areas for physical ailments. These are geographic areas just for the population, which would be the zip codes of 68111 in North Omaha and 68107 in South Omaha. I believe you probably saw at the last town hall meeting at North High School that map that was also available at the last committee meeting upstairs, which showed the distribution by juvenile probation of the children concentrated primarily in those two zip codes.
Primarily.
Yeah.
The bulk is probably closer to 7 as opposed to just 2, but yes.
Right. Mr. Alexander, I think you actually saw that map that was used in that presentation and the committee presentation, and it broke it out. It was hard to determine exactly the borders of the zip codes, but essentially North Omaha and South Omaha.
Essentially, yes. Yes.
So we've got the overwhelming majority of these children minority, the overwhelming of the majority of these children from two specific areas of Douglas County. Correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Boyle.
Yes, on page 23, it'd be helpful, for me anyway, if you could assign numbers to,
Actual numbers?
yeah,
Yep.
for example, new charge is 65%. How many children are
Yep.
is that? That'd be helpful to me. One other thing I'd like to suggest to the chair is that there are some Douglas County Justice Center public forums coming up, and this is not criticism, but an observation. The one at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, was really, I mean, the architects and those people, the bricks and mortar people, did a lot of talking. And I really think we need to have them not present, or else certainly don't talk. I think we need to do, well, Claire, I just mean, it's okay, but talking about the buildings is one thing. I mean, you know, when when they get up and speak about it, it's informative. But I think this information is so much more relevant to parents and children, and people who are concerned about the children themselves. For example, if Mary Bisick could come and talk about how probation works and why she gets involved, it would be helpful. And I think, as I listen more and more, and I know that the public schools are involved, but I think it would be good to have, invite the public school board members to come to really hear what was just said, for example, about where these children come from and what their problems are and the trauma and all these, some of this information. I mean, this information is valuable about what kind of crises they're having, post-traumatic stress disorder and so forth. It really focuses on the children, which I think we need to do. So anyway, I would like to see us invite the Omaha Public School Board members to come and to focus, almost to have them do this kind of a report or pieces of it, because it's very informative to tell the public that, we have these children are here because of these reasons. And also something that Commissioner Borgeson said was so much on point about the homes and what's going on in the homes. That to me is something that really impacts who's in our facility. There's a reason why the children in South Omaha, the Hispanics and so forth, there's a reason why they're getting involved in this activity. What's the reason? Why? What's going on at home that causes this? I mean, my impression of that particularly ethnic group was kind of what it is of the Irish years ago. I mean, they're close-knit and they stick together, and parents really take care of the discipline. Something's happened. And so I think we need to have the children, we need to involve more people. And I'm really concerned too that I know OPS and so forth, particularly we focus on them because those are the two zip codes, are involved, but I think they need to be involved even more. And I'm not up to speed, so maybe they're really there at the table, but I'm not aware of it. So I just suggest that. I think it's a presentation like this, an abbreviated one that would talk about, hit 4 or 5 pages and hit some points and zip codes and so forth, I think would be really valuable at these meetings and focus more on the children than the buildings, but we can do the buildings too. I know, I think Claire has a comment he'd like to make, but anyway, I probably misspoke when I talked about no conversation about the buildings, but it's just that I really want to, this is such a terrific report, so valuable, information that people don't know, and that's what I'd like to really focus on. If we can do that,
Well,
Mr.
let me say,
Chair.
I think you can do it after those existing forms, because to merge that into there is two different deals. I think the purpose of those forms is to give update about the building
Yeah.
and some of the point of where we're trying to go future-wise. This can easily be given.
Can we-
And I don't know, I don't have a problem with it. I think we
Oh,
just
that'd
need to
be
talk about
great.
how to do it, because the fact is that there was one conversation we had with the school district where they have to be prepared with that, because that's their call. I know there's some conversations that probation is having with them, so, yeah, you can have that bigger discussion, but that's a way bigger discussion about the system that needs to be planned out with some other groups, because they need to sign on.
Do you think we could get a piece of this, some of this, into our presentation?
Well,
I think it's valuable.
I think some of it was talked about in regards to the programs. This itself is a whole nother deal in some
Yeah.
degree that we had talked about. Now, there's been a couple of 3 or 4 presentations about this that they were on a panel on, I was on a panel on, that happened at Clare United Methodist. So there's been at least
Yeah.
3 conversations that have happened about it. So, yeah, we can definitely talk about it and see how it
That'd
fits
be
in
great.
our later
I
date.
think it helps focus on why we're doing what we're doing. I think it really is helpful, so thank you. I would like to see a snapshot of this presentation. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Greg, can I ask you all, and you all need to think about this, because I kind of asked about this in the August meeting. I think until the budget stuff gets over, it's kind of hard to set a tentative meeting, but I know we talked about it a little bit in case processing, so I've been gathering my own notes, but in August, I'd like to get a conversation about what your thoughts are about the position, what needs to be tweaked after a year to make it flow better, and go from there. So
Absolutely.
just putting it on your head to think about that. I got my own notes, but
Okay.
I'm probably trying to do it in the August committee meeting to have that discussion about that.
That'd be fantastic.
Okay. With that, thanks.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
With that, we'll go to item G, which is the Human Resource Report. Item 1 is the weekly personnel report from Civil Service as submitted. Item 2 is the legislative issues. Are there any issues anybody want to talk about? Seeing none. There is a need for executive session for, and I need to read, we reserve the right to go into an executive session in order to protect the public interest with respect to discussions regarding, and this is what we'll be going into session about, labor negotiations, litigation, and personnel.
Do you want to mention,
I will after a second. I
oh,
will.
okay.
Um,
I'll
the
make a
three I got.
motion.
Okay, there's a
Make
motion by Commissioner
to go
Gordon,
in for those 3 items.
second by Commissioner Duda. Please vote.
Sorry.
You can mention them. You can mention them now.
Motion passes 7-0.
You wanna mention them?
Well, next week we'll have, I think, 3 town hall meetings, and I believe one of them's on the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th, am I
Sixth,
correct?
7th, and the 9th.
6th, 7th, and 8th, and 9th, North
No,
Omaha.
just 6, 7, and 9. No, wait.
Start St. Roberts, and those will be town hall meetings that I plan to attend. I know, Claire, you mentioned you're going to be attending. I'm sure Chris, all of
But
us.
just
will
to, yeah,
pretty
to
much
clarify
be there.
that, there's 3 meetings, Monday, May 6th at the Salvation Army building, Tuesday, May 7th at St. Roberts.
Are we giving public notice?
Yeah, they're out.
We had one the other day that wasn't.
They're out now. And Thursday, May 9th at Metro, so information is out there and we'll be repeating it next week. Again, we're going to executive session for the purposes of labor negotiation, litigation, and personnel.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
something else, just send it up.
I'll holler, thank you. Okay. All right. She's always a yes.
You abstained, okay.
You're also a yes?
See you later.
Oh,
Have a
see ya.
great trip.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for the tip. All right, motion passes. All commissioners present voting yes. I will. I'll holler at you. Text you.